Welcome. Good evening. This is the official Acadia After Dark podcast. As always, I'm your host, Reverend Redbeard. Happy to happy to be here this evening. Got a fun show this week. Pre-recording this one due to the upcoming holiday in the U.S. Thanksgiving is tomorrow. Day after tomorrow. So the day that this goes live on Spotify should be National Turkey Day. The great gobbler will come down from the hills and take what is rightfully his. Anyways, we're gonna talk about a few things this episode. I got some fun stuff in store. Go over some of the stuff from the most recent video to the channel. Anybody familiar with the Palmyra wolf case? I was surprised how many people in the area have and haven't heard of it. Some people I would have expected would have heard of it, never did, and then talked to a couple of people that were like, "Oh yeah, I know somebody that was there," or something to that effect. Somebody lived in Palmyra, or somebody lived nearby and heard it. Um, Kind of a interesting thing for the local lore because it's a relatively new case, really. I mean, you look back on it, it was only 2016, I want to say. Uh, is when the Paranormal Witness episode went up. It's 2000, it might have been. But either way, yeah, the case itself was pretty interesting to research. I had a blast with working on this one. Ended up kind of down into some interesting rabbit holes I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But nonetheless, before we get too far into this, I wanted to take a quick minute. Thanks to everybody on Threads. We just crossed 100 followers today on there. We've also got our first 10 subscribers on YouTube. So, big day. It may not be much, but it's honest work. Nonetheless, I am appreciative of everybody that's helped the channel, everybody that supports us on the week to week. It means the world. Appreciate you tons. Nonetheless, we're hoping to continue this, keep her on the rails a little longer through the holidays. So I didn't want to overload my schedule. So I'm going to do this, then take the weekend off to work on the next week's video. Next video, well, you're going to see a little bit of a preview of it a little later, but that should be a fun one because covering all my bases in the first month, hopefully, month and a half. Well, technically it'd be a month and a week. Want to put as much stuff out there that we're going to be covering on the channel so everybody gets kind of a feel of everything, and then we'll do deeper dives, we'll do longer, more specialized things as we go on. But right now I just wanted to get all the basics knocked out. So anyways, we have first up on the podcast, we were talking this week about the Palmyra Wolves case. So that's not the one we want. Here we go. There we go. Okay, that's for later. Anyways, yeah, Palmyra Wolves case. So a lot of people, when I was investigating, at first, the first people that I saw, of course, I had seen the Paranormal Witness episode back in the day, like it was years ago. I saw that one, and at the time, it's just from a small town thing. But every time you hear like a town that you recognize and you're from a small town, you kind of do the Leonardo DiCaprio point. It's like, ah, yeah. So I immediately had that reaction when I heard Palmyra was mentioned on TV. And then when the case got mentioned by Mr. Ballin later on, he did a video on it a couple of years ago that was, a lot of people, everybody I know, talked about it, pretty much referenced his video, which was really interesting because it's like Mr. Ballin does great work. but he's always been more of a storyteller, and it's weird to me that like people took like everything that they knew factually about the case directly from his story and his telling of it rather than the paranormal witness episode where it actually talked to the family. So I don't know, I'm not sure how much he had pulled from if he has direct sources, firsthand accounts, or anything like that with him. It kind of sounded like he did have more information than most, but it's also he's a storyteller. He could have been filling in some of the blanks. Like factually, this house in the background here, this is the actual property that took the events took place on. And one big thing that everybody criticized, I was able to pull it up on Google Maps. I was able to find the property. I'm not going to give you the address. There's nobody living there currently that was involved with the case, but I do have some interesting stories because this property is surprisingly it's surprisingly notorious because not only is it well known for this wolf attack that this family was besieged by, but other people that have lived in the area and other people that have lived on that property itself have all reported weird stuff. It's not just werewolves. I'm still looking into more and trying to get more firsthand accounts. But as of now, this is kind of Maine's own little version of the Skinwalker Ranch. It's really weird the amount of just anomalous activity is happening on this one little property out in the middle of nowhere. Um, yeah, so when I was investigating, a lot of people, when you look it up online, of course, you go to Reddit posts, usually related to the Mr. Ballin video, and most people in the cryptozoology Reddit um, seem to all be of the opinion that because he had mentioned a wraparound porch, this whole thing like kind of was illegitimate, and that the property might not have been right or things like that. Um, so he mentions a porch, sure, and like that's the way it was even depicted in the first one. But what you can't see is on the back side of the property, there is a back to this house where there's a porch that looks out towards the tree line, which is exactly what they said. Now, that's not a wrap around porch, no, but it's also like that's what a porch is. It's usually most places, anyways. You're gonna have it looking at your yard, not just looking at your driveway or the road. So yeah, I don't know why people were so hung up on that for so long, but that seemed to be one thing that people were very I don't know. They were just for some reason or another that was where so many of the conversations ended up going as far as his video was concerned. I did see the Lore Lodge's video on it. Aiden Mattis there was talking about it a little bit. He did a video back in I want to say it was 2021, 2022. That was kind of interesting because he relates it to several of the same links that I did. And what I was hearing from what he talked about is he couldn't find the property at all on Google Maps. Now, the reason for that is actually I happen to know a little about it because of the area that they were in. That part of Maine only recently, within the last like 2 to 3 years, actually got a street view by Google Maps, and that's the first time that we've been able to see that part of like Maine in general. And that was within, I want to say, since 2020. It was not that long ago that they finally did it. So that's probably why most people weren't able to find the actual house online to see the property and stuff like that. But as you can see in this image, there's very obviously like you can see the tree line, and I can tell you that like that's a huge amount of property there. Like they had a massive plot by my standards, anyways. And from looking at where this house is, knowing their account of it, where like Eric ran out of the house to try and get to the barn where his guns were stored. Now, I'm assuming they mean the big one on the left side of the image, but if they don't, and he had to run all the way to the one on the right side of the image, which is what I'm almost thinking we're talking about from the way the story was told, that's a long haul for a guy on an injured with an injury, like an injured leg or whatever. I don't think that it would have been easy to make that trip, especially in the dark. And the fact the guy did it 3 times, I mean, kudos to him. I was talking to a buddy of mine today, and I don't think I would have done it after the first time. I would have run back inside and probably would have said, honey, we're just going to hide upstairs and find whatever weapons we can. We're just going to have to deal. But that guy tried at least 3 times from their accounts, and kudos to him, man. um, but yeah, looking at that property, it's not exactly like it's a very dense tree line there. So anything that you see, you're seeing it pretty clearly. There's not like a ton of stuff that would have obstructed their view when I watched them come up based off of their story. So I'm having a hard time thinking this is misidentification. Another thing is knowing that Eric was a hunter, or at least was like, familiar enough. Yeah, they may not have lived in this town for very long, but this man has probably seen coyotes and stuff like that the entire time he's been in Maine. He's probably seen them while hunting and things like that. Most people around here are familiar with what they look like. They could definitely tell you the difference between a coyote and a dog or a coyote and a wolf. We don't have wolves officially up here. I think we might have some, but it's not a big enough number to where I would think that there would be a random pack in Western Maine. It just doesn't seem likely. I'm not saying it's not possible, but also a wolf that we have in North America is not going to be standing on its hind legs looking 7 feet tall. There are breeds of wolves that get huge compared to humans, but not in North America and not like that. So there's a few things that make me think that this was a little more legit of a case, even if it is drummed up a bit, because that was one complaint the family had, was that they felt the paranormal witness and some of the other coverage that they got of the story was really playing out the whole thing. And I guess if that's how the family felt, I'd love to hear somebody get to interview them aside from Paranormal Witness, because I've listened to several interviews from that, and it sounds like they kind of kept the same story every time that it was told. So that just further lends credibility to me. Um, Moving on. Sorry about that. Anyways, moving on. There was another case not far off from there a year before, and that was the Turner Beast. This was I was able to find it in Chris Packer's book, which I keep referencing because it has so many of the main legends of folklore fairly frequently were in there. And the way he described the Turner Beast is pretty much what I'm assuming is it was probably a dog breed, but may have had like some slight deformities, but it definitely sounds like it was a wild dog or something like that from the way it was acting before being hit. And we do have those. Um, it's not completely unheard of for them, strays and whatever to be a little more um, aggressive towards humans. But this one, from the sounds of what they said, it was chasing chickens, it was attacking animals in the town and stuff like that. Could have been rabid, could have had numerous conditions, could have caused that, prions disease and stuff like that. I don't know if there are any that are wolf transmissible, but there was definitely several things that I was thinking could have been causing it to act the way it was. The weirdest part of it to me was the fact that it had been in the area for so long, and that was kind of weird because they had one a year before in Turner, the Palmyra Wolves case, and then they had one other case that took place a year after the Palmyra Wolves, and all within probably 20 miles of each other. So I don't know if it's just the woods out there in Western Maine or what, but they definitely seem to have had like a rash of like canine related activity, at least through the early 2000s. This other image that we managed to get, well, this one first, this was taken from one of the historical society books that I was referencing, and it was actually supposed to be a depiction of the Lugaroo. because we, interestingly enough, have like a big intersection between Cajun culture in Acadia because of the French coming over from obviously Europe and then going down through Canada. A lot of them came to Acadia in their travels down south, and some settled here. So we have like definitely a large French population. But the other thing with those cases too is back then when they were talking about the wolves people and stuff like that, the indigenous people of our area, the Wabanaki, they had already had legends of it for years, and they were referencing it. It sounds like it's kind of a combination of things because when I read up the legends on the Kawakwa, there was an intersectionality of it that I see common notes of it, but it's like it took all of the different pieces of several different legends and put them all into one. So we have legends of here of the Wendigo, but at the same time, the Chinoo and the Kawakwa both have legends, or at least part of the story has to do with the whole frozen heart thing, which is typically a Wendigo thing. Then on top of that, we have the fact that in its description, it didn't sound as much like a canine as it did more like a Sasquatch or a Sesquet. So just a large, hairier hominid. Now, aside from those, there's also this shapeshifter aspect of it where it was supposedly a form of witchcraft according to the Wabanaki. So that kind of relates it closer to a skinwalker. And I thought that was really interesting, which is why I want to do a bigger deep dive into this. But if they do have that intersectionality, one thing I have to wonder with that is these legends have been in Maine for hundreds of years now. So this is not something new, and we're seeing it. Um, I think that's really interesting. But the property itself had several cases, and that surrounding couple of townships all had similar reports. And that Skinwalker Ranch reference, the reason that I say that specifically about this property in Palmyra is because before the wolf attack, there were reports by numerous people saying that they had themselves seen lights, ghost lights out there. Even one of the first reports from the Martins was talking about how they saw lights in the woods. There was UFO activity reported around that area. There's also been numerous like reports of noises, screams, and things like that from the woods that aren't necessarily what you would associate with like a Sasquatch or something like that. And all of these different activities and anomalous like phenomena all appearing in this one area kind of gave me that same vibe. Maybe it's because it is a ranch style home and that certainly helps, but also I saw a lot of the similar trends. And that's why I want to do a little more investigating on that area over time because it seems like there might be more than just the singular Palmyra Wolves event that everybody has popularized. Further proof of that, I actually have some audio I'll play for you now that I think a lot of people will find interesting. This audio comes courtesy of I-95 Rocks.
Yeah, Jay Stu.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Well, it could be worse.
Well, all right.
Is this Justin?
So yeah, I was calling in because I lived in the Palmyra werewolf house for 2 years.
Oh,
How
you
did
lived
that
in the
happen?
actual house? You lived in it?
I did.
Oh, that is nuts, dude. All right, yeah. That then I'm so glad you reached out because you saw our story about it up at the website.
I did.
And what do you have to dispute or add to the story or whatever the case may be?
Well, I mean, in general, the house is pretty evil. I heard a lot of howling, and I never actually saw a werewolf, but I heard a lot of howling at night. Periodically through the years that I lived there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of paranormal activity
Really?
in regards
Within
to
the house?
Oh yeah, big time.
Like what?
stuff flying off the shelves. There was the landlord was redoing the house, and there was paint cans downstairs, and it was like somebody was walking along, like running their hands along the paint cans.
Weird. So do you think maybe like what was going on there, like maybe it's not a werewolf thing and that maybe the house is more of the issue and less that there's like weird, beasts out in the woods or anything like that?
Yeah, I do.
That makes
because they're because it's an old farmhouse from the 1800s,
mm-hmm.
and there was a loft in it, and I would sleep in the loft, and I remember one time in specific that the door to the loft flew open in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m. Okay,
mm-hmm.
flew open, and I woke up, and then I felt somebody slap the pillow next to my head. I felt the wind go by in my face.
Oh wow!
So that freaked me out. And then, like, common occurrences where, like, the TV would come on middle of the night.
Oh, weird.
And you
the
said your
washing
wife
machine would
can't
come
even,
on.
like, she can't even go near there? What happened with her?
So, broad daylight, there was 2 laundry baskets, one on top of the washing machine, one on top of the dryer. They flew off they flew off the washer and dryer, but I'm not like tip over. They like moved vertically and then dropped.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely more going on than just the wolves, at least according to those reports. There's a whole second part to that interview. There's a bit more to that recording that I'm definitely gonna save for a rainy day because it's very interesting. He tells a few more stories, Justin. But again, that was courtesy of I-95 Rocks. I found that one when I was digging around, and basically the story that he's telling sounds more like a poltergeist, and I don't know what to make with that because having werewolves is already something. Then also have that going on, crazy. Anyways, moving on, we had some interesting pictures I pulled up on Facebook this morning. Fortunately, they're from a private group, but I can't share credit of who gave them or the location from them, but I found these pictures to be interesting. So this one on the screen now, as you can see, has a apparent blue purple glowing object through the clouds, and this is a still photo. There's a second one in the series that I have, and from what I'm seeing, it was definitely static. It does not appear as if it was something that was put onto the picture. It doesn't appear as if there's any source visible from the ground, and I can tell you, knowing where this is, that I can't think of a source that would project this sort of a light onto the clouds. Now, there is an airport, but it's about 20 miles away from where this photo would have been taken. So I'm not sure if there would have been a light or something flying from the airport that possibly could have caused this. And I'd like any opinions. If anybody knows, I'll share this on the socials Thursday so people can take a look for themselves. I would love to hear anybody's opinions if you care to share. Here's another weird one that we got. Now, this one, if you've seen the movie Nope, that's all I could think of when I saw this picture. This cloud here in the middle of the frame is so oddly out of place that it almost reminded me of that. And with this location on this little beach here, and I actually know this beach as well. I've been there, taken my kids. It's a pretty nice place. I wouldn't have thought that it would be a place for UFOs or aliens. As far as I know, nobody reported anything weird that day, aside from this user who happened to notice this cloud that was drifting around They didn't really say anything was anomalous about the way it was moving or anything. They said it was just kind of there and just floating. But it just doesn't fit in with any of the rest of the background of clouds, and I've not seen one quite like that before myself. So I thought it was kind of fun. I wanted to share. This one also, this is an interesting one because there's a second one that makes it a little harder to see, but they were basically reporting that there was not just one. This looks almost as if this is motion. It is not. This is several objects all in a line that they were observing. And I know the area this is in. I have not been there myself, so I'm not sure if there's any source potentially. But I couldn't think of something that would cause like a line like this of objects. And they said that there's actually more that they were observing that we can't see in the picture. They were counting hundreds of these, according to the user. So I don't know what to make of that either. It's really a weird, scary kind of thing. Because with so much debris in orbit now between Starlink being launched. We see them a lot up here in northern Maine because we have a relatively low light pollution. So there's a lot of reports of what people would have thought UFOs were years ago, or now like we know they're Starlink. We had visibility of a meteor last year that turned the whole sky green at one point. Um, None of that is surprising to us because we see those things so often, and so many of us spend time outside actually looking at the sky that we're not really surprised when we see things like a shooting star or something like that. But when we see stuff like this, that's what kind of makes people around here scratch their heads, and that's why I pay attention to what we're saying, because it's not like we haven't seen this stuff before. So it's pretty much, I even one of them even went and did the research themselves, an anonymous, post. Somebody else went and actually did the research to just track to see if Starlink happened to be going over the area at the time the picture was taken, and they came back and said that it hadn't. So we're not sure what it could have been. And again, I wish that I could get more information from the users, but it's not exactly easy at the moment. One of these days, hopefully they'll come forward on their own and decide to speak up about it, report it to the news or something. I know a lot of people are still apprehensive about sharing information on UFOs, UAPs, USOs, etc. I'm hoping that the one good thing of the government, US government, starting to talk about it a little more with their hearings and things is that hopefully it will destigmatize some of the reporting and stuff around it, because I think that that's the healthiest thing that could possibly happen at this point. It feels like we're past due for full disclosure, and I know how things appear nowadays. It seems kind of hopeless, doom and gloom that they're going to. And at this point, people are like, "Oh, who cares? Aliens, just one more thing." But I still think that it's something that we need to have, at least know where they are, what they are. Anyways, so yeah, that's just about the end of the show. I hope that everybody has had a good week. Um, if you haven't, go check out the video on the Palmyra Wolves case and other wolf dog man related things from the Maine woods. I was trying to do some new stuff with that video. I used a few different techniques that I hadn't tried before, and I also reached out to my buddy Billy Lever. He I haven't gotten to talk to him recently, and I was glad to hear from him that he's doing, apparently he's still doing his thing, writing bangers, because he came up with that within a day and handed that over to me, and I'm so grateful for my boy. Anyways, if we're gonna have any other music added later on down the road, I want him to do it because he's just good like that. I hope someday I can pay him for it. I did offer. Anyways, we're going to see about next week with the current upload schedule. We'll have a new episode up Monday. So we're going to take the Thursday off for the holiday here in the US. If you are out with your family and need something spooky to listen to, feel free to turn on the show. I'll have a new episode coming right up, so everybody can enjoy that while you have your turkey goodies. I think that the next episode will be a longer one than the Palmyra Wolves case because it's dealing with a big topic for Maine, and that's UFOs. Because UFOs have been a lifelong interest of mine, and it's something I'm very knowledgeable in. So I'm going to go ahead and gush about it for a little bit. Why not? It's my show. Anyways, as I said earlier, I do appreciate everybody that tunes in. I appreciate everybody that shares, likes our posts, subscribes, follows, wherever you happen to be in the world or in your own space on the internet. I'm glad that you're here. Anyways, have a happy holiday. This is the Reverend Redbeard. Have a good one.